High Court has taken on a distinctly conservative color over the past few years, but it's the color of the voters that seems to be front and center tonight. According to the Brennan Center, right now, 19 states have passed restrictive voter legislation since the election of President Biden. The center adds 1 in 4 eligible voters is not registered. A decade ago, the Brennan Center proposed so-called motor voter registration, meaning when you register your car or change your license, you're automatically registered to vote. Right now, Ohio and South Carolina are 2 of the states in play when it comes to voting rights. Politicians have introduced restrictive legislation, but in those 2 states, new maps have been struck down by the state courts.
And joining us now tonight is Timothy Allen Simon, who has served as an adjunct professor of law at Golden Gate University and UC Hastings, and Christopher Bruce, political director of the NAACP of Georgia. I just want to make a slight correction. There was North Carolina, not South Carolina, that is coming up along with Ohio. Let me ask you real quickly, Timothy, because you have been following the Republican trail of things for a while. And we see now that the Republican or the conservatives on this court equating to basically voter suppression is the suppression of black voting rights a once in a decade event. Why is that now on the line because of this decision with regard to Alabama?
Well, it was the courts removing, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act and other provisions that has basically made open season on how voter suppression is being applied. In my view, it's been applied from both sides, depending on what period in history that we're talking about. But now clearly it's coming from the Republican side, and it's being backed on the belief that there is a radical left agenda from the Biden administration. This is the buzzwords that you will constantly hear from the Republican side. I don't think freedom to vote is a radical concept. It is something that is germane to our nation's founding. And if anything, voter laws should be made easier to vote, not more complicated. That is the American way. But unfortunately, if you allow that system based on demographics, America's leadership will look a lot different in years to come because we are experiencing a browning of this nation. Henceforth, control by rural states and the South better establishes a defense line for the status quo.
Christopher, let's bring you into this conversation. I should note that Christopher is with the ACLU in Georgia, Georgia being effectively ground zero for so much voter activation. Is Georgia an example of what states can do to counter voter suppression?
Oh, absolutely. Georgia has been working for years. This wasn't something that happened overnight. People in Georgia, especially some amazing organizers like Stacey Abrams, has put in place apparatus to make sure that people, especially Black people, are able to vote. Because when it comes down to it, we see the state legislators with a simple majority are passing these voter suppression laws. And yet on the federal level, we cannot have a majority of Democrats to actually pass federal protections. And so we look towards the courts when it comes to these type of situations. But the courts are not helping us as well. Let me read you a quote from Justice Kagan regarding restoring the gerrymandered maps in Alabama. Justice Kagan says, it does a disservice to the Black Alabamians who under that precedented have had their electoral power diminished. In violation of a law, this court, the Supreme Court, once knew to buttress all of American democracy. We have always, as a people, Black people, looked towards the federal government for protections when it came to the aggressions of white supremacists. We did that after the Civil War. Well, we did that for the Civil War to have the North come down to the South and say slavery is wrong. We did that during Reconstruction with federal troops, where federal troops were down here saying, do not attack Black people. And now we need their help on voting rights. It needs to be passed on the federal level. And until it's passed, we're still going to have Black people organizing in the streets, going into these neighborhoods that are being suppressed on so many different levels, and signing them up one by one to fight back. But I'm telling you, you cannot out-organize Jim Crow. It's going to come to a breaking point, and we're
Mhm.
scarily close to that right now in Georgia, as well as across the rest of the South.
Uh, yeah, and Timothy, to Chris's point, I mean, it's so apparent. Yet on the other side of the aisle, on the conservative side of the aisle, black and white conservatives are arguing, "What's the big fuss?" They do not see this. They see it as one representative of Alabama stated as a leftist, or, and you said it yourself, left of center approach, radical Democrats. We're talking about people who live in a state where they have grown in population and they're being limited in terms of being able to decide and vote fairly for someone that they want to represent them, whether they're black or white.
This is so true. And what the Republican side, including certain members of the United States Supreme Court, they're trying to find a colorblind standard. This has been very commonplace even amongst black conservatives. But the issue is its implementation. When you have a country that had 254 years of enslavement of my ancestors, followed by another 100 years of Jim Crow, and then what we're witnessing even today in this country, based on the very volatile issue of race, it's very, very difficult to have this utopian colorblind society. There's not a level playing field. The field has to be levelized. And as my distinguished panelist said, that's where the federal government has historically come in under the Equal Protection Clause as imposed by the Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment, that being the 14th and Fifth Amendments. And that's what the federal government is going to have to do. And if it's not done by a Supreme Court that seems to abandon the issue of race from a standpoint of creating a more equal and just society, then that is where Congress comes in, because Congress makes the laws. The Supreme Court determines as the final arbiter if those laws are in fact constitutional.
Chris, so much of this can happen and be decided at the state level if voting was simply made easy. Why the pushback to having voting just be something simple and accessible?
Well, there we go. I completely agree with everything you said. Voting can be made easy on the state level. It's just which state do we have problems with voting? And typically we have the states with the largest black populations that have targeted voter suppression bills in them. Because I can tell you what, they're trying to limit drop boxes in the state of Georgia. Not even limit. This year, they're trying to eliminate drop boxes altogether. Another life-saving venue of being able to vote during a pandemic like COVID-19. And let me remind everyone, we're not out of COVID-19. So you have in one state ran by Republicans that have a significant black population trying to eliminate something that black people use. While I can take you over to Utah, where you have a supermajority of Republicans in a supermajority white state who do what? They put drop boxes everywhere. So when I say this is on a state by state basis, it's not a question of who we're making voting easier for. And that's why this should be taken away from the states altogether. Voting should be regulated on the federal level, because your right to vote really is a constitutional right altogether.
Timothy Allen Simon, who is a chairman of the African American Chamber of Commerce, Christopher Bruce, political director of the ACLU. Thank you both for joining us tonight.